So it's Tuesday, it's time for a tutorial. I've been on holiday and I'm a bit slow, so bear with me as I get back up to speed. We're talking about Metamask EIP 1559 and the changes it has made to your Metamask experience. Now, EIP 1559 went live on the 5th of August, and since then, things have been a little different, and I've noticed certain people struggling with how it works exactly. Today, we're going to take all of that and explain it bit by bit. So bear with us as we do exactly that. So EIP 1559 was a huge change to the way that we process miner fees. And what it did was effectively, it got rid of the first price auction system and replaced it with a fixed price sale. And what does that mean? Well, basically, when you send a transaction, there's a base fee. That base fee changes and it depends on how busy the network is. And then on top of that, there is a priority transaction fee that is a tip to the miner, and you can vary how much you want to pay, depending on how fast you want your transaction put through. So of course, if you're trying to buy an NFT in a drop or art blocks, for instance, then it might be very critical that you get your transaction into a block. And the reason all of this is necessary is because blocks are a fixed size. There can only be a certain number of transactions in a block, and if you've got a whole bunch of people trying to cram into that block, then you get congestion. And that's where you see these massive rises in gas prices because too many people are trying to get into the same block. And so if you're a miner, you're going to want to take the transactions that have the best profit for you, and that's where the priority transaction fee comes in on top of that. So all of that is basically what's driving the new changes to MetaMask. So the best thing we can do is just jump in and actually take a proper look. So I've got a little transaction that I queued up earlier. I'm going to reject that and we can start again. So all I'm going to do now is just go through processing a transaction. We'll go through the different pieces of information that you're going to be required to put in and what they actually mean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send just a tiny little bit of ETH between my accounts, like so. It's just going to be 0.01, nothing major, 33 bucks. So now we go to next, and we have some information. So what we have here is the estimated gas fee. Now, this is the base fee, which is paid to get your transaction through. And this, if you leave MetaMask open, you'll see it'll flash and these will change, and that's because the network conditions are changing. Now, you'll actually see up here, I've got another little piece of information here. We'll jump on that later, but that's the Ethereum gas price extension. If you click on it, it will give you the current base fee plus the recommended base fee to get a transaction through fast. If we go back to this transaction that we put through, what it's giving us now is a medium setting for the transaction priority fee. And we can actually go in and have a look at this. So MetaMask automatically sets up a kind of optimal scenario for you that should get your transaction through relatively quickly and relatively cheaply. And as you can see now, it's starting to flash. And that's because the network is constantly in flux. Every time there's a block, the congestion around that block changes, and so the base fee changes. It's constantly in flux. So if we look here, we can see that this, our price for this transaction, it keeps changing. You see, it's going to be $3.47. And that is taking into account the base fee plus the transaction priority fee as well. We can then dial down into more advanced options and take a closer look at what's going on here. But we can also set this to low, and it'll be slower, maybe in 30 seconds. We can also turn it up to high. And as you can see, the difference between them is not a huge amount. In fact, the difference between medium and low, not a huge amount anyway. So you might as well, in this instance, if you're really in a hurry, set it to high. And that's because the network is not particularly busy right now. This number here, 48.9, in times of high stress, it can go up to 500, 600. Absolutely insane, and beyond. And you can be paying, $3,000 in gas fees just to put a transaction through. That's insane, if you ask me. So now we can go to the advanced options and have a look at this. So the max priority fee, which is factored in GUI, and if you don't know what GUI is a billionth of an ETH. So it's a very small amount of ETH. So here we have the max priority fee. So this is the max priority fee that we want to pay to the miner. So this is the tip that we want to pay to the miner. So we could set this to 100, and the miner's going to get $7. Wow. And as you can see here, the max fee cannot be lower than the max priority fee. So we'd have to drop this down, let's say to 50. So now we have a nice fat juicy tip for the miner, and it doesn't make a huge amount of sense to do that. You might as well do it for the least you can. But if you wanted to really ram through a transaction, you could set that quite high and get your transaction put to the front of the queue, which is sometimes where you want to be. Sometimes you don't care. You can leave it for an hour and that's absolutely fine. The max fee is going to be the base fee plus the priority fee. So that's the most amount you're going to pay for the transaction. And then this gas limit up here, that's the maximum units of gas that you would like to put through. Some smart contracts are quite heavy on computation, so you might want to jack that up. But for the most part, 21,000 is kind of where it's at. So this number times this number is what's going to give you your final cost for the transaction. And so I'm just going to cancel that. So that's basically it for MetaMask. It's not a huge amount to wrap your head around. It's just understanding that there's a base fee. That doesn't change for that moment. You cannot change that, but you can set this transaction priority fee as a tip to the miners to get your transaction through ahead of time. And that's basically it. It's not that complicated. Now, I did talk about the Ethereum gas price extension, which is here. I'll leave a link to this in the description below. And all this will do is just give you a little widget up here to guide you in terms of understanding where the network is at and how busy it is. And of course, if you monitor this and you're looking to put through a fairly unpressing transaction, try and look for it to be below 50. That seems fair. I mean, I've seen it down like 35 sometimes, but the way the market is at the moment, like this is sort of where things are at. It's not crazy expensive, but it can add up. And if you see this, in the hundreds, there's probably some kind of drop going on or some kind of sale going on, or the market might be dumping, and that will inevitably jack the price of gas up. And then you get into gas wars, and nobody wants that. Now, I guess there was this feeling that EIP 1559 would make gas fees lower and make it cheaper to transact on Ethereum, but it's not really the case. It just means it's more transparent. You have more control over what's going on, but at the same time, it's still expensive, relatively speaking, when you look at a network like Near or Solana or Harmony, for instance, much cheaper. So I still think there are incentives for people to go and transact on other networks or look at layer 2s. But for now, that is how the new MetaMask works. It's not that complicated. What you will notice is that there's just a little bit of a lag when you're trying to put a transaction through. MetaMask used to be faster. You used to be able to bang, 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 get a transaction through now. There's this little moment where it just goes, and everything's whited out, and then it comes back, and then you can process a transaction, which can feel a bit weird, but once you get used to it, it's absolutely fine. So that's it for today's tutorial. It was a real basic one, but of course, when you see MetaMask change, it makes a big impact on your Ethereum activities, and so that's why we wanted to put a little tutorial together just to explain what's changed, how it works, and yeah, there you go. If you have any suggestions for tutorials, drop them in the description below, and as always, get subscribed, drop us a like, hit the notifications bell, because we are on our way to 100,000 subscribers. We want to get that Google Play button because, we've worked hard for this, and it would be nice to have that little plaque sitting there. See you on the next one. Peace!